everyone. I wanted to talk about our daughter Aria. She was born with a cleft palate. She is 7 months old, and I wanted to just be able to kind of record her journey. We received a call on May 1st that she is getting her palate repair on the 25th of this month. It is now, today it is Wednesday, May 17th. So she's having her pre-op appointment in 2 days, and I have waited way too long to start these videos, but it's never too late kind of thing, and I want to be able to record some of it and be able to talk about what we went through and what Aria has gone through, and everything. Be able to answer any questions that you guys have, maybe by speaking through our experience. So Aria was born September 30th, 2016, and she was born via C-section after a little bit of complication that happened because I had a prior C-section. She was born at 10:44 a.m. and she was absolutely beautiful. We love her very, very much. We tried breastfeeding a few minutes after birth, and she was not able to latch on. But when she did latch on, they were for very few seconds, and she was making these very cute little suckling noises. We thought maybe it was something I was doing wrong. We thought that maybe I couldn't latch her on correctly, and so our lactation consultant came in and tried different things to help us out, the football hold and all these different things. And after a few minutes, basically, not to make the story too long, we kept insisting that they check her again because she was making these cute little noises, and we just thought that she was struggling too hard to latch on. And so they checked her again to see if maybe it was a tongue tie, and they discovered that she had a cleft palate, which they had missed originally, and which means the palate has a hard palate and it has a soft palate, and so she has a cleft in the soft palate. And I'll later on I'll try to show pictures and maybe even try to record her if I can. And so immediately my husband and we started to worry about sorry, my 4-year-old is in the room and she's trying to whisper around the video. But anyway, my husband and I were worried about what was going on, and what was going to happen, and if she was going to be okay. And it was a struggle to learn how to feed her. No one in the hospital was very too much informed as to what cleft palates were, and they brought us the Haberman bottle, and they tried showing us to feed her with the syringe, and so we tried the Haberman, and she didn't really like it that much. By the way, the Haberman is just absolutely, in my opinion, something is wrong with it. Maybe the one that we got was wrong with it, because the milk kept leaking out, and I was pumping, and so that was like liquid gold spilling with that bottle, and it was absolutely frustrating. We met with a cleft team in VC. We met with the cleft team, and they gave us more insights about what it was, and they told us that the most important thing was to know that nothing I did caused it, and nothing I could have done could prevent it. And they were very, very helpful from the beginning. Ruth Traveltees is the one that who I speak to directly to schedule anything, like any questions I may have. I go through her, and she's the one that helped us with learning how to feed her and everything. All the questions we had, she answered. I will probably do a video later on and go more in depth about how labor and delivery were the first few days, because I know that parents that are expecting a cleft baby, they have a lot of questions of how it happens. So I'll probably do that later on, but as of right now, so back to where we were, we learned that Aria really, really liked the pigeon bottles, and they are very expensive. So they're like $12 for one nipple and $20 per bottle, which brings two nipples. And compared to other bottles out there, it gets very pricey very quickly. As many of you can tell, I'm wearing a different shirt and the lighting has probably changed and my makeup is different, and it is because it's the following day. I wasn't able to finish recording yesterday, but I was out, as I was saying, I'll try to pick up where I left off. Aria really liked the pigeon nipple. She did really good with that bottle, and she was feeding very well with it. So that's what we started using at home. They gave us, I believe, 2, and they also gave us a Dr. Brown number 2 nipples, because we had bought the valves at home from our own pocket before that we went to meet them, and they gave us the number 2 nipple because we were using the number 1, and they told us to try a bigger nipple and that it will help her, because even though she was a newborn, it will help her feed. And so we used both Dr. Brown bottles and the pigeon bottles as well. Her weight gain has been consistent. Her weight gain has been consistent. We'll be having to go possibly weekly for doctor checkups, and to make sure that she was gaining weight. And if she wasn't, then we would have to go and probably get a feeding tube for her so she was able to gain the weight that she needed, because a lot of cleft babies are underweight. They also suffer from recurring ear infections, which can lead to hearing loss, which can become permanent because they have fluid in their ears. Because when you have a cleft palate, when you swallow, your fluid doesn't drain properly from your ears. And so she has had ear infections that started around 4 months old, and that's when they started, and after that they kind of have been happening constantly. And but the weight gain has been great, so she defeated that odds. I thank God that she hasn't had to have a feeding tube, and that she was not underweight. She has been gaining weight perfectly. She's a very chunky baby. We actually call her Chunky, and she responds to that better than she responds to her own name. She was able to have the first 3 months without any ear infections whatsoever, though she still had some fluid in her ear, and they started happening, actually the ear infection started happening around 4 months, and after that they kind of have been happening back to back. So we called, and we thought that maybe they were going to rush, not rush, they were going to go ahead and put ear tubes in her before the cleft palate surgery. Aria, they told us Aria was scheduled for her cleft palate surgery somewhere between, I believe they said 8 and 10 months, and so we were expecting that to be between June and July. I think that's what we said. Yeah, between June and July is what we had talked to with a team of doctors, and so we were expecting for that timeline, and we were hoping to get a June timeline. So they called us on May 1st. I received the phone call. It was around 12 p.m. I received a phone call from Ruth, and she said she was returning my call because I was calling her about Aria having recurrent ear infections. And so she was returning my call, and she was like, okay, well, now that her surgery is scheduled, I'm not sure if you wanted to move up the date to this week. And I was like, what? Like, her surgery is scheduled? We haven't been given a date. And mind you, I was calling them actually constantly to try to get a date as soon as possible. I was calling them starting April. I was starting probably April or even sooner. I was calling them constantly to try to get a date ahead of time, because I really wanted to plan around work and family. We were going to have my grandmother fly in from Nicaragua. I'm from Nicaragua. My family's from Nicaragua, so we were going to have my grandma fly in from Nicaragua because she really wanted to be here for her surgery. And so we really wanted a date ahead of time. That way we were able to plan all these different things around it we know that recovery time is between 3 and 4 weeks, as far as I've heard from other moms. And so we really wanted to be able to take some time off and focus on her and her recovery. So when she calls me and she tells me that we have been given a date already, I was like, no, we haven't. She was like, oh, you haven't received a call? I was like, no. And she was like, oh, I'm sorry about that. It looks like they scheduled her for May 25th. And as soon as I heard May, everything else kind of like in the movies, you know, where everything like fades away in the background and you just kind of like zone out. That is exactly what happened to me. I felt my heart fall into my stomach, like the pit of my stomach. I couldn't even hear anything else that she said after that. I can't remember anything else that she said after that because we were on the phone for at least a minute after that. And I kind of just started to freak out, like internally. I wanted to cry. I felt kind of like sick to my stomach because I was so nervous and anxious. And after getting off the phone with her, she told me that she would call me to schedule the pre-op appointment. That someone would call me to schedule the pre-op appointment sometime in May, in the following weeks, because it was already May 1st, so we were going to schedule it sometime soon. And so immediately getting off the phone with her, I was like, okay, well, you know what? I'm not going to worry too much because I know that I'm probably going to be able to move the date. And I asked her actually before getting off the phone, I was like, is there any way we can do it in June? Because, you know, that's the date we were given at first. They told us that to expect to schedule it in June. And so that's what we did. And she was like, I'll talk to the person who schedules the surgeries and see what we can do. I went downstairs and I told my mom, and she noticed that she was like, you don't look so good. And she was like, try to calm down and, you know, don't worry, everything's going to be fine. And so I went upstairs and I called my husband and I was like, hey, you know, I have some news, but I need you to sit down because I know how I reacted and I knew my husband was going to react the same way, if not worse. He's at work, many people are around him, and they're going to see his reaction and notice that, you know, something's off. And I thought to myself, I was like, should I wait? I was like, no, I have to tell him immediately because I know that, you know, right now we have to start planning. We only have 24 days, and to me that's not enough time to plan all these things that we had to plan. And so I was like, I have to tell him immediately. Every second counts from now until the date of the surgery. And so I called him. I was like, hey, I need you to sit down. I have some news, and, you know, it's good news. And I was like smiling because, you know, trying to hide what I was feeling. I was like, hey, you know, I have some news. Please try to, you know, everything's fine. I just want you to know everything's fine. Aria is fine. I'm fine. But I need you to sit down. Please sit down. You know, are you sure you can take this call? You know, I kept checking in with him. And by repeating myself, he was starting to get annoyed. And he was like, please just tell me. Like, just tell me what's going on. And I was like, we got the call. And then he knew. But you know, there was like a pause. And he was like, what call? Even though he knew exactly what call I was talking about, I was like, we got the call for the surgery date. Are you ready? And so then he was like, yes. And then I was like, okay, May 25th. And then after that, I just heard him sigh. And like we spoke after that, you know, about what I had asked for, moving it to June. And I told him that I didn't feel so good. And like he asked me how I felt, because he asked me how I felt. And I told him like, I don't know. And then immediately after like getting off the phone with him, I just had these rush of emotions which I could finally react. I didn't want to cry on the phone with him. I didn't want to cry in front of my mom or in front of the girls. And so I took a moment after hanging up the phone with him and I just cried. And then I took a deep breath and got myself together. And, you know, I realized that I'm on a group on Facebook called Cleft Mommies, and they're amazing. The moms there are absolutely amazing. They've provided so much help. They are so informative. Everyone is just so helping with each other, even though we're in different situations. Some have bilateral cleft lips and palates, full cleft palate, both hard and soft. Some have just soft, some hard, one, you know, just all these different things. And all the babies are affected in different ways, and there's, you know, few cases which go exactly the same way as, you know, my daughter's case, Aria's case, which is just a soft palate cleft. And so they're just so helpful and so encouraging. And immediately I thought, that's my second source of support during this journey with Aria, has been that group on Facebook. I did not get on Facebook before. I still don't get on Facebook much for like my own things, like to update anything or check my messages. No, I get on Facebook directly to Cleft Mommies if I have a question, and that's what I do. I that's my group. That's all I interact. That's all. The only way I interact on Facebook is through that group. They have been so supportive, and I wish I could thank each and every mother on there, because they help not only myself and Aria, but they also help all these other families, because those moms are posting, and I'm gonna get carried away. But anyway, so I went to that page and I was like, okay, like, oh my gosh, like, what do I have to do? What do I have to get ready? What do we have to take with the hospital? Like, what should I expect for Aria? What should I expect for the recovery? How long is surgery? I had all these questions, even though I have been on this page for months. I have read these same questions being asked, and all the answers and everything. I've read that for months, but I've every time I was on the page, these moms would keep asking they'd be like, "Oh, my daughter just got the call for her surgery. What should I bring? What do I do?" Like all these, immediately. And then I'd be like, someone just asked that this morning. Someone just asked that last night. Like, I finally understood why the moms would ask that question so often, even though they had the answer before. And it's because as soon as you get that call, it's like your whole world just flips upside down, and it's taken completely from below your feet, and you just feel like, oh my gosh, is my daughter going to be okay? Even though you already know it's going to be okay. In that moment when you get that call, it becomes real. Even though from the moment they're born, you're told that it's going to be repaired, that they will have surgery. So you have these months in preparation. You know it's going to happen, and that's all you talk about every time you go to the doctors. Even though that happens, when you get the call for the date that is scheduled, it kind of just takes the air out of your lungs, because it becomes more like real. I just don't know how to explain it. Until you have experienced that call, then you probably know exactly what I mean. My husband felt the same way. I felt the same way. My mother felt the same way. I mean, our family was just felt the same exact way. Aria goes tomorrow for her pre-op appointment, which is why I've been in a rush to start these videos. I wish I would have started them sooner so I could record, all the little sounds that she makes and everything. As soon as we got that call, it became, I don't know, it started to feel like I had only these minutes left with her self, because when you're a parent of a baby that is born differently than other babies, or with a condition or a syndrome or anything that the medical terms may refer to, that baby in your eyes is absolutely perfect. Our daughter Aria is absolutely perfect in our eyes, and even though babies with cleft palates and lips are affected in many, many, many ways, we wouldn't have them look any differently. And a cleft palate is inside, so you're not able to see it, once the surgery is fixed. Like when they fix it, you're not going to be able to see anything differently. But to us, there's a lot of things that are going to change. For example, when she is drinking out of a bottle and she makes these cute little noises, and it's absolutely adorable. We think it's the cutest thing. It's been, the absolute cutest thing since she was born. We heard that suckling noise, which is absolutely cute. She won't be making these like cute little like Darth Vader noises, which a lot of parents will refer to it. And it's just little nasally noises that they like push a lot of air out of their nose when they're like laughing. There are so many different things that we're gonna miss, when she has that. And I understand now when moms would be like, I don't want my son to have the surgery. I don't want my daughter to have her lip repaired. She's gonna look different. I'm not gonna recognize her. Or once the baby's got out of surgery, they'd be like, I don't recognize my kid. I wish she could have her cleft lip again. And it's because your baby is perfect to you. and they don't need to change. They don't need anything different. And in your eyes, they're absolutely perfect. You don't need it. You wish, nothing is. It doesn't bother you. They're beautiful in your eyes. I just can't even, say that enough. But so all these things that went through my mind immediately, it kind of affected us. And so now we are going to start this week journey, this week battle, as I have been saying, to her surgery, which is exactly 7 days from today. That is just absolutely crazy. She was born, I was told this would happen, and now it just feels like, it's not real. Like, I don't want it to happen in a way. I know she's going to be absolutely fine. I know that the surgeons know what they're doing. They do this all the time. They have hundreds of babies that they constantly, operate on, and they're absolutely an amazing team of doctors. And I know that she's going to be okay, and I know that it's just going to help her. I know she's going to do much better with feeding and with speech and many different things. Like, no more worrying about aspirating, no more worrying about ear infections constantly happening, no more worrying about milk coming out of her nose and us having to be able to suck liquid, anything coming out of her nose with the suction, because she is struggling to breathe, especially when she was feeding, like the purees. They'd be kind of like between her mouth, throat, and nose, and so her whole airway was kind of blocked for a few seconds. When she would sneeze, sometimes I'd be like in the middle, and we would have to react immediately. And no more worrying about all these negative things that come along with being cleft affected. And I know she's going to be okay. We know she's going to be okay. But let me just tell you, it has absolutely consumed us. I mean, absolutely it has drained my husband and I. It has drained us emotionally. I wish I could fast forward for her recovery, and I can just tell myself and be like, okay, well, we're fine now, and start the road to recovery, because it has drained me. It really has. I have cried almost every single day just thinking about it, or reading other stories of the moms on Facebook talking about their babies' cleft palate repairs, and having to see their babies come out of surgery swollen and bloody, and you can obviously tell they're in pain. And some have success stories where they're out of the hospital within 24 hours, which is what they plan to do with Aria. And a lot of them actually will have breathing complications, and they'll have to stay an extra night, 5 nights a week, because they need oxygen, or they need a breathing tube, or they need to be on life support, because their babies are just so drained from the pain of, they're just so hurt, and they can't breathe properly. Their airway is swollen, because this is a soft palate, which is in the back of the throat, and just like you swell anywhere when you have any kind of operation done. So they swell up, and they have kind of an obstructed airway. And I'm not hoping, obviously, for my daughter to go through that, or for us to go through that with her, but I just want to read the good and the bad, and I don't want them to sugarcoat anything. I don't want them to put it on a pretty platter and tell me, oh, she'll be fine, just gonna go in and out, it's gonna be fine, and then we pack for it's going to be fine, 24 hours, we pack for 24 hours, and then we're not there for 24 hours, and, we're an hour away, which is not that far away, but, we do have a 4-year-old, and we have to be prepared mentally, as well as emotionally, as well as, with our bags, and, in case we do have to stay, and we have to have a backup plan of who's going to watch our daughter, and, several things. And so we've been watching a lot of reading, a lot of cleft palate repairs on the Facebook group. I ask a lot of questions constantly. I am praying for all those babies every day. Every time I see a story, every time I see that someone is going through surgery, I pray for them. And so yeah, we've been feeling like, you know, the wind has been taken out of our lungs, like our heart is in our stomach, like there's like a constant knot in our throats. And I'm just so thankful to be going through this with Rudy, my husband, who has been absolutely amazing. He's been so supportive, and he just really understands, you know, how I'm feeling right now, and he's very comforting. So Aria goes in for a pre-op appointment tomorrow. We're 7 days away, and I want to talk about a few of the items that we've gotten her in a different video. So stay tuned, guys, and I hope this wasn't a long, you know, boring video. I know I'm not really concentrated on what I'm talking about, because that's like, I was kind of trying to skip through it, you know, like skim through it, I mean, and try to get to, you know, what's going on tomorrow and what's going on in the next 7 days. And so, you know, when I have more time, I will talk about my labor and delivery. I will talk about feeding, you know, bottle feeding. When did we start solid, like when did we start solids, what did we start with, how is it, you know, how are ear infections, and how is traveling with her, and how are all these different things. I will talk about those things, you know, once my mind is like where it needs to be to talk about them. I will also talk about where she's like, how she's been sleeping, and, you know, how our family reacted. I'm sure many of you have that question. I hope this video wasn't too long, and I hope that I'm able to provide any information. I feel like I didn't talk much about anything because there's just so much information that I needed, so much I want to talk about. But I hope this was a good starter video, and I hope you expect many, many, many more from me. And my husband will definitely be joining me in other videos to talk about how his perspective is about the situation, and have his comments and his feelings be poured out to you guys. So thank you very much.